Hi Stampers, I want to welcome you to my very first video for my blog that I've been trying to mentally prepare for months now, and hopefully this one will be okay and they will get better, I promise. So let's go ahead, let me get started so I don't delay any longer and give you a little lesson on cutting your cardstock. Cutting cardstock is probably one of those things when you first start stamping that sometimes it overwhelms you, it's a little intimidating, and I want to show you how actually easy it can be. One of your first purchases, if you don't have a paper cutter that you already use, is this Fisker's paper cutter. It's absolutely wonderful, and when I first started we had a smaller Fisker's and it was harder to see, and as in anything, improvements have been wonderful. Let me tell you a little bit about the paper cutter so you know how this works. It has a roller that goes vertically, and you can lift this up, and this is where your cutting blade actually does the cutting. Right here between your roller, this is the actual blade that's going to cut. If you lift that up, you have measurements on this side. They go out to 3/4 of an inch. This is so you can cut a narrow piece of cardstock. And you'll see this, if you cut your cardstock like this, it's kind of really hard to line it up at 1/2 inch, so it's much easier to use the measurement over here. A lot of people are unaware of that, and I'll show you how that works. Also, one of the things you can do, you have this roller that slips under. It goes out to 15.5 inches, a little bit further, but 15.5 is the max that I really feel comfortable, and let me show you. That's 15.5. One of the first things I did with my Fisker's paper cutter is I marked two important measurements. That was at 4 1/4 and 5.5 inches, and I just took my Sharpie and marked all the way from the top to the bottom. Those are your two main measurements on a standard card. Your standard card is 5.5 inches by 4 1/4 inches. If you remember those 2 inches, you'll be able to cut cardstock forever. Now, what I'm going to do is going to show you how to cut your first piece of cardstock. When I'm making cards, I usually use 8.5 by 11 cardstock, which is, it comes in 8.5 by 11 or 12 by 12, and I want to go ahead and cut it in half. So what I'm going to do, I put my blade down, I'm going to lift my ruler up, slide my paper underneath so it goes all the way up to the gutter, and I'm going to line this edge up with the 5.5 inches. Then I'm going to take my blade from the bottom and I'm going to move it up. You want to move it up so your cardstock does not move. If you pull that blade down, this cardstock can pull apart and go down like that, and your cuts can be crooked. So if you're doing that and you're having a hard time getting some straight cuts, that could be the problem. Now, I've cut this piece of cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half. And I'm going to take my bone folder, and I'm just going to go along that. I'm going to give that a nice crease. So this piece of cardstock, the folded card, measures at 4 1/4 inches by 5.5 inches. Now, I want to go ahead, I want to put a layer on my cardstock. And what I'm going to do is cut it 1/4 inch smaller on each side. That is kind of the secret in cutting. It's always go down 1/4 inch or go up 1/4 inch. So if this is 4 1/4 by 5.5, my next layer is going to be 4 inches by 5 1/4. So what I'm going to do is go ahead, and I have some scraps over here, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece. This is some close to cocoa. I'm going to cut it first at 4 inches. And then I'm going to pull my ruler out, turn it sideways, and cut it at 5 1/4 inches. Okay? Now, I have my layer that's going to fit right on top of there. Okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to put a focal image on there. And so what I've decided, I've taken a scrap piece of Whisper White cardstock, and I'm going to take my stamp set, which is what's it called? Love You Much, and it's the new special that we have going on, and I'm going to take this Love You Much stamp, and I am going to stamp that onto my Whisper White cardstock. A lot of times when you're creating your cards, you don't always have everything cut and then you stamp. Sometimes you stamp and then you cut. So what we're going to do is we're going to ink this up really well, and I'm just going to stamp it in the lower left corner. Okay? And there's my image. Now you can see where my image was not that solid right here. One of the great things I like about Stampin' Up! Cardstock is you can turn it over. And let me ink that up again. And let's try this again. Okay, and there's my image nice and solid. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it in my paper cutter, and I want to make sure that I kind of center it between this gutter and this piece of cardstock, and I try to use 1/4 inches. If I do it at 2 3/4 inches, I think that that's going to be the cut that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. And then I'm going to turn it, and I want that. If I do it at 2 1/4 inches, it might cut off that flower. I don't know if you can see that, so I'm just going to do it at 3 inches. Okay, now I have my cardstock cut. So we know that this is let's see, it's 2 3/4 inches, 2 1/4 inches by 2 1/2 inches, I'm sorry. So my layer, I want to be 1/4 inch bigger. So if it is 2 1/4 inches by 2 1/2, I want it to be 2 1/2 inches by 2 3/4. Okay, that's 1/4 inch bigger on both sides. And then I'm going to go ahead and mount my cardstock like that and see how it makes that nice frame. Then I'm going to go ahead and take this, and it would help if I had adhesive. Okay, now I have my snail. I want to go ahead and adhere this. When I use snail, I like to use plenty. I'm going to center that up. Okay, and I want to go ahead and take my chocolate, or close to cocoa. And I'm going to center that up. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my focal point, and I'm going to stick it in the middle of my card. Now this card is just very basic, very simple, but I did it because I wanted you to get the idea of exactly how to cut your cardstock. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more, and thanks so much.